Hello and welcome. This is Lights Out, and away we go with the episode. With the Formula One podcast for fans and by fans. I'm Will. As I look across the digital garage, as always, I'm joined by my co-driver, or should I say my co-host, Sam. Hello, Sam. How are you?
Hello, Will. Hello again, listeners. I'm very well, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. A bit tired, a bit hoarse, but I'm good. And how are you? How was your weekend?
It was okay. So, as you know, I was meant to be attending a wedding with you. A good friend of ours just got married on Saturday, but unfortunately, my little petri dish of a toddler got really ill on Saturday, so I couldn't come. I was stuck at home looking after her, and my missus was pretty ill as well. So, yeah, bit of a rubbish weekend in the end, actually. Saturday was a bit rubbish. So yeah, just basically in full nurse mode for most of it. So yeah, I was very sad to miss the wedding, and the pictures looked fantastic. Looked like a very nice day. I'm assuming you had an excellent time.
Yes, I had a jolly old time, and you were greatly missed. I greatly enjoyed eating pizza so much that I on the dance floor that I spilt pizza oil all over my white shirt, and then was then dancing with my pizza. So I had a great time. But you'll be pleased to know that the stain has come out on my shirt, so that's all good. But yeah, no,
Oh,
it was
phew,
it
I'm
was a good
relieved
time.
about that.
But I did not make it up in time to watch the race at 6 o'clock in the morning. But I'm guessing you managed to do that.
I did, yes. Yeah, one of the only benefit from my daughter being really ill on Saturday was that because we'd been up with her the night before, we were really tired, so we went to bed early, and I woke up, with 45 minutes to spare or something. So I even managed to watch the grid walk as well, which is, as you know, is one of my favourite parts of a Grand Prix weekend. Particularly when they're particularly some of these like high-profile ones where you get like real A-listers who don't know who Martin Brundle is. It just makes for great telly. So yes, I did watch it. I did. It was good.
And you had the great moment of was it Shaquille O'Neal just saying Lewis Hamilton baby?
Yeah, that was
him.
fantastic. I did think I know we are generally quite a pro Lewis Hamilton podcast, so sorry if you're listening and you don't like him very much. But I thought it was quite interesting that the number of people Martin Brundle bumped into on the grid who said they were there to support Lewis Hamilton somehow referenced Lewis Hamilton, or in the case of Shaq, just said Lewis Hamilton baby and then walked off. Yes, I thought that was quite interesting. I mean, yeah, we've done a whole podcast on Lewis before, so we won't do it here. But yeah, there's an argument that he's probably bigger than the sport, probably. But no, anyway, we'll do that one another day. But yeah, I did think that was quite interesting. And I think like even Martin Brundle, you can tell by the end he was a bit like, oh my god, could someone just say something other than talking about Lewis Hamilton when I'm on the grid? That would be great. But yeah, no, it's good. It was good grid walk actually. It's quite good fun.
And you also had the amazing entrance of Sergio Perez awkwardly standing there after being announced, and him and the announcer just awkwardly not knowing what to do and just staring at each other. I've seen that clip. That was very funny.
Yeah, he looked incredibly awkward, didn't he, and embarrassed. And he just looked like a kid who was lost at parents' evening or something. It was really funny. Yeah, I think there are a few drivers that just aren't used to this level of pomp, I guess, with Formula One. Yeah. And one of them who ended up winning the race, we will talk about, I'm sure, at length. But yeah, Checo was definitely on that list as well. He just didn't really look like he understood what was going on or why.
Yeah. He looked very confused. I mean, there's a lot to talk about from this weekend. And we did our preview episode to talk about some of the issues in the build-up, but there's a lot of content that's come from this weekend alone. So I think what we'll do in the first half, we'll talk about the race itself. And then in the second half, we'll sort of talk about what happened in the build-up of the weekend, Thursday practice or Friday practice and all that drama. And then it just as an event overall. Let's start with the race.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say it was the race of the season for you? Was it up there for you?
It's up there, yeah. It's definitely top three. I did enjoy Singapore quite a lot, and Silverstone was very good and is always very good. British bias, etc. But it was really good. I really liked it. Lots of overtakes. Some of the moves were unreal as well. So it's not just overtakes; it's the quality of some of them were really good. You get some races where it's just a DRS kind of job and car behind overtakes car in front because the drag reduction system's open, the straight's really long, and it's a doddle. But there was actually quite a lot of really good racing, and to manage to deliver that in a city centre that's not been set up for a race ever or as a proper circuit, I thought was really like quite special. So yeah, I know we'll talk a lot about race organisation, F1, and the rest of it. But yeah, by the time the race had ended, it kind of cemented itself in my mind as like a real success. and a very welcome addition to the calendar, because it's unusual to get a street circuit in that kind of location where the racing's really good and you see lots of overtaking. I mean, you can get some great street circuits, Monaco, etc., where like overtaking is really difficult or impossible, and then equally you get some circuits where overtaking is really easy, but you don't get the same kind of, I guess, atmosphere, venue, all the rest of it. And to get all of those things combined into one race in quite unusual conditions, made it really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It was well worth getting up for in the end.
So it's won you over then from being potentially what looked like a boring, outline of what a circuit would look like when everyone was sort of mocking it, looking like Spider Pig.
Yep,
it's won you over to be, deserves its place on the calendar already.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there are definitely some tweaks they can make to improve it. I mean, there are a few corners where they could maybe open up the apexes a little bit more and just help. That might help, like closer racing and stuff in some of those sections. But the straights are long enough without being too long to allow for proper overtakes. And turn 17, which is the last turn, so they come flying around the corner, and then they turn left onto the main straight, and it's almost blind, and like the straight itself is actually a little bit curved, which again makes the start of the race quite interesting because half the cars are sort of tucked around the corner and need an extra set of lights to see when they're supposed to go. But that turn 17 was really, really good. Like the car, you could see the cars going through there like full pace, really good place for overtakes. We saw Lewis put an amazing overtake on through that corner on Gasly, and a few others. Like, it's just really good, like really good corner. And in general, I thought the circuit was very, very good. Yeah, there are a few bits I'm sure they'll look to improve, but drain covers, for example. But in general, I thought it was really good, really good.
I really enjoyed in the highlights seeing them. It was when they were going for the line at the end of the race. That corner across the line, the cars look like they're absolutely being flung around that corner. Just the speed of them is amazing. I really enjoyed that. I mean, it was a very good race for overtaking. He had the race with the second most number of overtakes this season behind Zandvoort. I think that was wet ones. That's why there's a lot of overtakes. I think it's beaten the record of the most overtakes in dry conditions since I think it's China. Well, that must be pre 2020 because we've not been there for a number of years. And can you guess who had the most overtakes of any driver this weekend?
I can, and I know this one. It is Lewis, isn't it?
His
goatedness,
his goatedness.
I mean, yes, I mean a lot of that was because he ended up starting quite far down, getting a puncture, and then coming from the back in a relatively fast car over the course of the weekend. But he did look like a bit of a man on a mission, actually. I mean, he's looked like that a lot of this season. Like you and I have both commented this season, he looks like he's back to his absolute peak best kind of again, as he was in 2020 and through most of 2021. But he was really, really good yesterday. And some of the moves he pulled out. I mean, there are a couple. I mean, that one on Gasly in 17 was unreal. The one past Alonso as well was really brave.
Oh yeah.
And we know Alonso is not an easy overtake at all. Just ask Checo. He had a really good race. I think he made 15 overtakes, didn't get past once. He went 15-0, as the graphic told me over the course of Sunday. And to pull that car up to 7th from given the circumstances he found himself in the race was pretty good effort.
Yeah, no, the race seemed to have it all. It seemed to have safety cars, had different race leaders. There seems to be drama right across the grid. Max Verstappen wins another race.
Yes.
His 19th race win of the season, which is absolutely incredible. Is it 19?
I think so. 19. Yeah. So I think he's on. If he wins Abu Dhabi, I think this is right. I think if he wins Abu Dhabi, he not only extends the record for most victories in a row, but he also breaks the record for the most victories in a row in third place, as in the third most victories in a row in one season.
Yeah.
I mean, the levels of dominance. He was. I mean, he was in quite prickly mood all weekend, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we can come on to his comments before the race started in the second half, but he was in a prickly mood in the car in the race.
Yeah.
Because you had him winning, you had Charles go with that last lap overtake on Checo, which is, penny for Checo's thoughts. It's the second time he's lost a position on the final lap of the race.
Yeah.
And then it was a real battle, wasn't it, between Max and Charles? What did you make of the turn 1 incident at the start of the race?
Max being naughty, I think. I mean, he says no grip, but I mean, I've heard him argue about that with others, particularly like George Russell. I remember earlier this season when he sort of caught him in early on in the race, and George said he had no grip, and Max said, "Well, we know none of us have any grip," and the same applies in this situation. They're all driving in the same circumstances, and Max is one of the more outstanding drivers on the grid. I struggle to believe it was just a lack of grip that forced Charles Leclerc off. I think it was on purpose, and he was rightfully punished for it. Although the 5-second penalty, as always, didn't really do a huge deal. What I would say is he was quite lucky to win the race in the end, though, Max, because that second safety car really benefited him. That was after Lando's crash. So I think without that crash, I think Charles probably wins the race handily. Maybe Max gets within 5 to 10 seconds, but because of the second safety car bunching them all up, the opportunity for him to come in, put fresh tyres on, and then all of the shenanigans with Checo and Charles at the front. Basically, all of those conditions came together very nicely to allow Max to win the race, what was relatively comfortably in the end. But without that safety car, he wouldn't have won it, and that 5-second penalty would have probably killed his chances of winning it. On paper, it looked like it was an absolute slam dunk penalty, and everyone was saying, "Oh, it's not really going to cost him very much." But when he had to serve it in the pits and came out like 8th or 9th or something with 7 or 8 cars to pass and quite a big gap to Charles Leclerc, that was kind of race win gone essentially at that stage. But hey, another safety car came to the rescue for him.
Was that second safety car was for when George hit him, wasn't it?
Oh yes, that's right. No, not Lando. Yeah, when
Lando was quite early on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, second. Yeah, Lando was the first. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there was a couple of things I was going to say about the Max move. I mean, it's just overly aggressive, and there's no skill in enforcing someone off the road like that. Like we saw it with Lewis, and I think you heard it in Charles's radio message being like, "This needs to be sorted right now," and it was like, it's clear. What I think is a real issue is the penalty, because the fact they didn't switch him, and then he could serve it when he wanted to. It just meant that he could then benefit from being out in front, and then Charles following him, which is ruining his tyres. And so Max got a benefit despite being in the wrong. I think the FIA need to go away over the winter and look at that rule and toughen that up, because I don't think that's particularly fair to have someone dictate when they can take a penalty and then get an advantage from it or minimise the effect of the penalty. Maybe even should have been given a 10-second penalty. I don't know, to have a real impact if he wasn't going to return the position. It's either 5 seconds and you return the position, or it's 10 and you don't return the position, because then you're incentivized to take the 5 second. But yeah, I really hope they go away and have a think about that. And also I really hope that if Max starts to do this more often when he's got more competition for wins, that the FAA really come down hard on it, because it can't be allowed to be behave like that. If that was Lewis behaving like that, I'd call that out and say that's unacceptable. And I thought it was a really poor start to the race for a world champion to be driving like that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, he's got it in the locker, isn't he? We've seen him make that move quite a few times and force people off. We remember very well that it often was Lewis in 2021, but he's done it to other drivers the last couple of years as well. And yeah, it was pretty unnecessary, I thought. Did you hear what he said on the radio after he'd been told he got the 5-second penalty, by the way?
He said, what was it? He
said thanks, send them my regards.
Oh, yeah. And I heard them say, like, oh, we're happy to do whatever you want. If you want to hand the position back, we're happy to like your decision, which obviously means they obviously knew what he was going to do, so they were happy with that. But classic Max. We should talk about Charles. Very impressive performance, really. He probably did everything he could to win the race, really.
Yep.
And it probably came down to luck with the second safety car benefiting Max.
Yep.
Max also not taking the penalty when he probably should have done. And just maybe slightly car performance. Was the Red Bull just slightly, that was Max's Red Bull just that slightly bit quicker than Charles?
I don't know. I think Charles was incredibly unlucky, as he seemingly always has been. I mean, we did a whole we could do a whole episode on the various bits of misfortune that have befallen him this season and last. No, I don't think so. They were very, very closely matched. Even on the race pace, I thought they were very closely matched. And without the safety car coming out the second time round, Charles wins the race relatively easily. And I think as well, maybe with more laps, we could have seen a slightly different tyre differential, because Max obviously got the benefit and got to put new tyres on. I think if they'd had the same tyres, we may have seen Charles fight back a bit more. But yeah, I think it was more misfortune than necessarily being totally outperformed by Max and Red Bull. I think like in a straight fight, it's pretty close. Maybe Max comes out on top, but it's not a done deal at all. And Charles was on a mission this weekend. I mean, we'll get to the overtake, I'm sure, on Checo in a minute, but I don't think he'd have been an easy pass at all, and he demonstrated his capability to come back. I mean, he took Checo again, and that Checo, albeit driving with a slightly draggier car with a bigger wing on it, is still driving a Red Bull, and he managed to get past him. So I think I would have fancied him to put up a pretty good fight with Max, and we'd have seen quite a close battle, were it for that unfortunate tyre differential following the safety car. But no, he was outstanding a weekend, Leclerc. I mean, I said to you on the pod last week, didn't I? I fancied him to be in the mix for a win. And for Ferrari generally, that's the kind of track that does favour them. I mean, Charles and Carlos Sainz qualified P1 and 2 on the road, and then Sainz got the penalty, which we will come to, listener, if you're a Ferrari or Sainz fan. They clearly had a very competitive package, but yeah, Charles was just the best all through the weekend, quickest through the practices, quickest in quali, and then really good in the race, and just really unlucky, really.
Yeah, no, he was really good, and I really enjoyed his overtake on Checo on the final lap. I mean, it looks like a straightforward pass, but actually, I think it's actually a really difficult one because of the speed he's traveling in the tow, and then he brakes so late, and I think he pulls like 7G, which is just an insane amount going into for a corner like that. And we'd seen that coming, his sort of late braking with Max. He'd done when him and Max were side by side earlier in the race at that same corner. You see Max pull ahead, and then you see Charles just be so much late on the braking and manage, and they go into the corner. I think he had to yield a little bit, but that last lap overtake was really, really impressive. Did you enjoy it as well?
Yeah, it was brilliant. I didn't cheer too loudly because it was still pretty early in the morning. But no, I was really pleased for him. I'd have been a bit gutted for Charles finishing third and have to finish behind both Red Bulls, given the performance he put in all weekend. So for him to get that second place, and the move was so good, as you say. I mean, he brakes so late there. It's just on old tyres towards the end of the race. I mean, fair play. He puts a lot of trust in Checo not to just drive into him there, and Checo did well to avoid him. But it was kind of like peak Charles Leclerc, kind of peak Daniel Ricciardo when he was at his absolute best as well. Just like send it, send it, hit the brake as hard as you can. Hope you don't have a crash, and if you don't, you put off a great maneuver. So he did. Yeah, really good. Yeah, it's just fantastic. It's nice to see him. I mean, he's had a really good. I feel like from a performance perspective, he's been right up there the last couple of months. He's been very unlucky in a lot of cases, and this weekend was absolutely no different. But it feels like he's getting more reward for his talent now, which is nice.
Yeah, he's been on a good run of form over the last few weeks, which is good to see. Like I say, he's had a bit of pretty periods of ups and downs. I should just say Checo, he wasn't to blame for the overtake. I think he was obviously took that position going into that final corner to line up to his line for going into the final bit, and so that's why he kept it wide. But if he defended and closed off the inside, I think it would have massively compromised him going into the final. So he was in a tricky position, really. Sometimes you just there's not much you can do when you're being attacked like that, and you're kind of being made to put in that position by something like that. But Checo, he seems to have stabilised a bit as well. He's had a couple of good weekends. No errors.
Cemented second in the championship now as well. The Hamilton finishing second in the standings as the dream has died.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. It's a street circuit, so of course Checo is going to turn up. He had a pretty strong weekend. I mean, he didn't qualify brilliantly at all, but I don't know. It didn't seem like that was massively his fault. I think he got held up in traffic along with a few others. And then obviously got caught up in all the shenanigans into turn one at the beginning as well. So, yeah, but he drove a really good race. I think Red Bull strategy were just on it as well. As soon as that first safety car came out, they pitted him, put him in a really clean load of clean air, nice window to close the gap. And yeah, without the second safety car, Checo was in a really strong position, and it turned out he was still in a really strong position even afterwards. He managed to build enough gap that he could come in again and take advantage. I think if Checo was going to be annoyed about anything, he'd probably be more annoyed about coughing up the lead the first time round to Leclerc after he'd overtaken him, because if he'd done the old Carlos Sainz DRS Bants trick, he might have been able to keep Leclerc in second place and stop Max from getting past, but he didn't. Instead, he coughed up first place. He left the door wide open for Charles. I don't quite know why. It's almost like he didn't expect him to make a move. I think Charles knew the only hope he had was to get back in front. So yeah, I think that's the one he'll be more disappointed about than the last lap. You can't really account for Charles just deciding, screw it, I'm sending it. If you crash, you crash. So be it. The first one I actually think was a bit more of an error from him, but still, strong weekend on a circuit that probably does suit him quite nicely. And yeah, he's cemented second in the championship. Although I say he's cemented second in the championship, the points difference is, I'm just going to have a quick look here. How good's my maths? Okay, so I mean it's nearly 300 points. The difference between Max and Checo. So Max is on 549, Checo's on 273.
Wow.
So it could be 300 by the time the next race comes around. If Checo has a DNF and Max wins, it's 300 points, and that's more than any other driver has got total this season.
Crazy.
Astounding.
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
On drivers not expecting someone to be there, George Russell didn't have a good one. I don't know. He seemed to be caught by surprise by how quickly Max gained on him and then turned in and sort of picked up a bit of damage and sort of damaged Max as well. Although I don't think it did any damage to Max, losing some of his front end plates, such as the aerodynamics on that car. He did put his hands up and say he was to blame for it, but
obviously,
yeah. I mean, there's probably a world in which we could have seen George trying not to to defend himself and probably saying it was someone else to blame, but at least took responsibility for it.
Yeah.
Just another sign that he's in poor form, right?
Yeah, it was a bit clumsy, I think. I mean, the visibility in the cars isn't great.
It's not someone happy, is it? It's not someone happy driving, making that kind of mistake.
No.
It's quite a rash error mistake, which you would make if you're on the peak of your powers. And
it's cost him. It has cost him. Like that was another really good opportunity this weekend where I'll talk about Mercedes in more detail in a moment, but where he qualifies pretty well, puts the car in. Where did he qualify? Fourth, third? Yeah. Oh, he ended up third, didn't he? Because of the Sainz penalty. Yeah, so he starts P3 in a really strong position in a Mercedes that I think was actually really competitive this weekend compared to where they were in Brazil, which was absolutely nowhere. The car was really competitive and in a good place, as we've talked about with Lewis getting all the way up to seventh, and despite punctures and God knows what else. There was an opportunity there for George to finish at least fourth, maybe higher. And certainly an opportunity for him to beat his teammate. And now here we are after a pretty strong weekend, and he's still finished behind Lewis in the standings because he made a mistake and drove into the side of Verstappen. It's just a bit clumsy, and I think he needs the winter. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. He needs some time off. I think come back again next year and regain some focus and think about some areas to improve. But I think that's probably true of all of Mercedes, who you'll be pleased to hear, or won't be pleased to hear as a Mercedes fan. I have awarded a Latifi for this weekend.
Oh wow, your consecutive Latifi to them.
Yeah, so last time I gave him a Latifi just for a terrible weekend from a performance perspective, like that, absolutely nowhere. Neither driver was happy. It felt like a really wasted opportunity on a circuit that they've historically performed really well at. This weekend, I'm giving it to them for a number of different factors. I mean, there weren't an absolute myriad of potential Latifis to be awarded, I think, this weekend. Like, generally speaking, most of the teams performed okay. I mean, there are a few drivers that had a few issues, but nothing that warranted a kind of calling them out kind of issue. But for Mercedes, I just feel like from top to bottom, it was just a bit of a weird weekend, quite a poor one in general. Lewis aside, I feel like we said that a few times this year. I think I'll start with Toto, who... So after the stuff that happened on Thursday, there was an awful lot of criticism. We're going to talk about it in that second half, listener, because there's quite a lot to get into there. But all the stuff that happened on Thursday, and Toto came out and was, I think, pretty tone deaf about what had happened. Like, it was almost like he'd forgotten that there were fans and that people had paid money to turn up on that Thursday. And he just came out like massively kind of company man territory, where he was just like defending Formula One, said it wasn't a real issue, slapped down Fred Vasseur for being really upset about the fact that his driver could have been really seriously hurt by that drain cover, and the fact that it's cost them probably millions of pounds worth in damage and a penalty in the race whilst they're all fighting for second place. There's a rumour doing the rounds that Mercedes refused to let Ferrari off that particular penalty. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, again, poor. I don't think that's pretty poor. And then there's just a catalogue of issues throughout the race. So Lewis got put into a really poor qualifying window. So he was stuck behind Lance Stroll in qualifying, couldn't put a good lap in, and ended up qualifying in 11th, promoted to P10 because of Sainz's penalty. And that just really cost them, because Lewis was absolutely on it all weekend, like in the practices and stuff. Like, they hooked the car up, the Mercedes were happy. Like, you could tell George and Lewis were both really excited for the race. And like, when that happens this season in that car, it must be in pretty good place, right, comparatively to where they've been the rest of the season. So for them to like get qualifying so wrong on a street circuit, it's just really, really frustrating. And then they put Lewis on hard tyres for the start of the race. And like, there were a lot of circuits where I think, yeah, okay, that makes sense. sure, like Silverstone, Spa, pick all the race circuits you want, where a safety car is incredibly unlikely, fine. But at this one, like, it's a street circuit, it's incredibly narrow. The as we found with Turn 1, it took 3 cars out, spinning around doing pirouettes. It's quite a dangerous circuit as well, and it was freezing cold, so nobody had any temperature in their tyres. A safety car seemed like quite a likely outcome, right, in the first third of the race. So putting Lewis on hard tyres at the start just totally felt a bit like unnecessarily risky. Like, they didn't need to do that, and it also cost you at the start as well. It cost you like 2 or 3 meters from the start. Lewis lost a load of places, got mixed up in all that shenanigans with Perez and Sainz and not Alonso and the rest of it, and totally screwed his race. And it just felt unnecessary. Just put him on the medium tires like everybody else, and then if a safety car comes, you get the benefit. You shoot up the grid, and then all of a sudden you've got Hamilton challenging for a podium. Probably, it just felt like a real missed opportunity. And then you throw in Russell driving into the side of Verstappen, and it was just a really clumsy weekend. And I hadn't even talked about the pit stops, which for Lewis were really poor again, like 6.3, 5 point something, 11 seconds worth of pit stops.
Wow.
George's were better, and I know one of Lewis's was bad because of a punctured tire or semi-punctured tire, but still, like, it's another weekend where the pit stops have been pretty poor, and cost them a load of time. Yeah, it was just, I mean, there's a lot in there, but it felt like a microcosm for Mercedes' season, right? Like, there were a lot of like little individual things that all added up to quite a big missed opportunity, I think, over the course of a weekend in a car that, as I've said, was quick and quite competitive. So yeah, I've awarded them Latifi twice. Sorry, twice in 2 races. I don't want to give them a third next week. Let's hope not.
Will they do the hat trick? I mean, it sounds like it's well deserving. There's many things that have gone wrong, and like I said, I quite like the analogy of it's summing up their season. Like, there's things they've made mistakes as a team. The drivers have made mistakes, and then also they've just been a bit unlucky. In qualifying, that's just bad. Some of it's bad luck as well. Yeah. Well, good job they're not fighting for a world championship at this point in the season, because I think that would have been.
But they're fighting
very
with Ferrari
costly
for second. That's worth tens of millions, and there's 4 points in it now.
Yeah.
There's every chance Ferrari finish above them now next week.
Yeah. It's gonna be a big fight out next week in Abu Dhabi. It needs everyone to be absolutely on it for both teams, really, because both teams have had problems with reliability, or people not finishing the race, or penalties, or incidents. So it's kind of, they both need them. It'd be good if all 4 drivers can be fighting against each other to set that. I mean, that could be quite exciting. We should quickly cover off a few other drivers before we get to the break. Lando's crash, that looked pretty scary, and that looked a bit of a freak crash as well. From what it seems like it was a bump in the road that kind of he didn't spot or didn't see, and that just really threw him in the car, and then he was basically a passenger for quite a while into that wall. Looked quite scary.
Yeah, it was a nasty one. It was quite weird when we saw it happen live, because they had the camera angle, and it was sort of the back end of the turn. You just see a load of sparks and like a blur of orange papaya flash past, and everyone wondering what the hell's going on.
Crofty spotted it before he got called as the flags away. He's like, something's happened weird there, and then they got the replays, and then he figured out what happened.
Yeah, no, it was a really nasty one. Yeah, it looked like he just caught a bump. I mean, the McLaren was running pretty low anyway, and a few other drivers I think did catch that bump, but they didn't have the same, the same level of reverberation through the car. And yeah, he was a complete passenger as soon as he hit it. Had to go to hospital, didn't they? But he seems like he's okay. Checked him out and said he was fine. But it's a bit of a shame, because the McLaren pace in the race was actually pretty good, as Piastri managed to demonstrate relatively late on. So yeah, it was a bit of a shame for Lando, because there was a chance there, I think, for both of them to finish in the points, despite having a really, really, really poor qualifying.
The Malzo, they completely got the setup wrong, didn't they?
Yeah, so they were screwed a little bit by all the practice stuff. So they because they lost FP1, and then in FP2 when they finally did start, they had delays because they had some electrical issues in the cars. They just lost a chunk of time in FP2 as well. So yeah, they got the setup wrong. Managed to get it right, or make a few changes in terms of the race. But it wasn't a particularly good weekend for them. But Lando, fortunately, was all right, because it didn't look like a nice shunt, that one.
No, it was good to see it was discharged and no major issues. A few other shout outs we should do. Esteban Ocon for finishing P4th, which is really good. And also, he did probably have the best one-off helmets. I really enjoyed his Deadpool inspired helmet. I thought it looked really cool from when they showed the shots of him, and you could see it looked like it. Deadpool. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, that was really good. Yeah, I loved his helmet. Yeah, he had a really good race. Ocon, I think he competed really well. And interestingly, on a circuit where power was quite a big factor, and we know the Alpine engine's not brilliant, he did a really good job. I felt a bit bad for Gasly actually, because so Gasly was the unfortunate person to be overtaken with like unbelievable passes by Ocon, Hamilton, and Piastri. But Gasly qualified really well. He qualified well ahead of Ocon, and they just got put on a pants strategy and got screwed by the safety cars. So Ocon ended up getting a massive benefit, overtaking him, and then cementing himself in P4, which was a really good return for Alpine in terms of the championship. But yes, not great day for Gasly, but another classic street circuit drive for Esteban Ocon, who absolutely loves those, doesn't he? Like his favourite.
And another surprising result was Daddy's favourite boy,
Yes.
Lance Stroll, finishing 5th. I mean, outperformed Alonso, consecutive 5th place finish, brought home points at a really important time for the team. He has discovered form at just the right time. You know, those points are going to be so valuable, especially with Lando crashing out. We now do really have a battle for, is it 4th place in the championship? Yeah, which is, you know, for ages it seemed like only a matter of time until, you know, it seemed, you know, for a while that McLaren were easily going to finish that, but it's really going to go down to the final race now, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's 11 points between McLaren and Aston Martin now.
Yeah.
And so four between Mercedes and Ferrari, 11. Alpine are very much staying in 6th. And then it's quite interesting at the bottom as well. So you got Williams in 7th on 28 points, AlphaTauri in 8th on 21, and they've obviously found a load of performance. Alfa Romeo, I mean, oh my God, Bottas. I felt bad for Bottas.
He's so unlucky.
He's the
unluckiest driver, right?
Yeah, there are a few drivers that I can't believe how unlucky they get sometimes, and he's on the list for sure. And then Haas propping up the table. So yeah, there's a race to sort of not finish last. There's a race for 7th, and then a race for sort of 4th and 2nd in the championship in Abu Dhabi, which should be interesting.
Well, at least it makes it interesting for the final race.
Yeah.
And then you said Piastri had a good race as well, with some good overtakes, and then he got fastest lap as well.
He did get fastest lap. Yeah, he was really racy. He looked really good. It was unfortunate, really, because he went hard. So he started on the hard tyre as well, similar to Hamilton. Ended up with the same issue. And then they were a bit unlucky when they came together. I think the pass was fine, really clean overtake, but they just clashed wheels and somehow managed to both get punctures. Piastri benefited from realising his earlier and managed to get into the pit lane, whereas Lewis had to drive around the entire circuit with a puncture, costing himself a load of time, which was really annoying. But no, Piastri had a really good weekend in general, I thought. Like the qualifying position, yes, qualifying shenanigans aside, but he did out-qualify Lando, put in a really good performance in the race, looked really racy, made a few really nice overtakes, and but for a questionable strategy and a couple of safety cars costing him and a puncture, he'd have been top 5, I think. He looked really, really good. I wouldn't have been surprised to see Piastri overtake Russell, actually, late in the race, but hey, not to be.
Yeah, oh well. I think that summarises our chat on the race. I'll be giving my Latifi after the break. And with that, we'll take a quick pit stop.
Oh,
pit stop, new line for you. Yeah, new line for you there.
Very nice.
Hello there, podcast friends. We've got an exclusive Black Friday deal just for you from our friends at Current Body, your go-to for all things skincare and wellness. This Black Friday, pamper yourself with 20% off on all skin products using the code BFKATEP20. That's all together. So it's BFKATEP20. And guess what? You can snag 10% off on everything else with the code BFKATEP10. So it's BFKATEP20 for all skin products and BFKATEP10 for everything else. Now, I've personally been using their hair growth device, and let me tell you, it's been a game changer for me. My hair has never looked better, and I owe it all to Current Body. So treat yourself this Black Friday because you deserve it. Head over to currentbody.com and use the code BFKATEP20 for that radiant skin glow, or BFKATEP10 for a little bit of everything else. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on these fantastic deals. Happy shopping!
Hello, welcome back from the break. Hope you had a jolly old time. So one of the main talking points from Vegas was the very first bit of the race weekend. The first, 9 minutes of race action, and then of Friday practice, which was actually happening on Thursday evening in Vegas. A loose drain cover, like you said, did quite a bit of damage to Ocon's, but really wrecked Sainz's car.
Yep.
And he then had to take a 10-place penalty for it as well. There's quite a lot to digest. There's the sports response to it. There's the organisers, which is also kind of the sport as well. Where do you want to start with the mess that was Thursday practice or Friday practice?
So I think let's start with the drain cover itself. So I think there are a few issues. Or a couple of issues. So one that should be acknowledged is obviously this is the first time they've raced there. These kind of things do often happen the first time a race is held anywhere. There are always teething problems. I mean, this was quite a big teething problem, granted, particularly if you're a Ferrari fan or paying any of the bills to get the car fixed. But these things do sometimes happen. So I'm kind of in on the incident itself, I'm feeling relatively forgiveful. Well, no, what's the word I'm looking for? Not forgiveful.
You're forgiving.
Forgiving. I'm feeling relatively forgiving about the issue itself, but the response to it, no, not
okay.
so much.
So I slightly differ from you because I think they've known about this at Street Circus. It's happened before, happened to Russell in Baku, so they should have checked it properly. There was no test event, so the first people to test the track was the F1 cars. And for the fact for it to happen so early on means that something has not been checked properly for that or thought about properly. And then apparently the organisers were very late to sign off the circuit to say it was all ready. And I think that's just rushing. And then that's actually a real own goal for not have done that properly and just tested out properly. Maybe they should have had, F3 out first, or, had an event the week before or something just to get to iron out these issues. I think it was a real, it was a headline story for a mega flagship £500 million race that F1 was the race promoter for. I thought it was a real own goal. But yeah, the response. So where do you want to start on the response?
Oh, it's just so bad. Everything about it was bad. I mean, they handled it really poorly. They took absolutely ages to sort it out. The communication with everybody, included, but particularly the fans in this, in the grandstands and stuff, was appalling. Then they cancelled free practice 1, pushed back free practice 2, and then, I mean, do you want to talk a bit about what they did to the fans in free practice 2? Because that's probably the thing that most angered most people.
Yeah, so because it happened so late, and because the security staff had worked like the limit of what their shift could have been because it all got delayed, they then couldn't staff the grandstands, so then they had to then send home fans, and then some grandstands didn't know if it affected them, so then you had people being turfed out, and there were people that had paid for 3-day weekends, so for them 3-day passes, so they could go every day, but some people had paid for the Thursday, and they got turfed out after only seeing 9 minutes. And then you say it took a while for a statement to come out from Formula One, and the first statement didn't say the word sorry. And then I think they put out 3 statements in total, and the word sorry did not appear. It seem to be the hardest word for F1. And they put over 1,000 words in these statements. And I understand why they couldn't say the word sorry, because it meant would have made them liable, and then they would have to pay for, people could have sued them for flights and travel costs and hotels, and that's why. But it just didn't scream of a sport that was looking after its fans or showing compassion.
Yeah.
Then I think offering a £200 voucher to people that have missed out on seeing action at a Grand Prix where they spent a lot of money to go and spend £200 or $200, in the store at the circuit, like I think that's really poor. It just seems a lot of the comms was tone deaf, and I thought it was handled really, really poorly, and it kind of screwed the fans over when that shouldn't have happened. And I think it's a real failing of the sport. And for that, I think, it's F1 with your race organisers, and they usually are very quick to criticise other race organisers and throw them under the bus and put them under pressure. Like, I think it's really unacceptable to cock up that way and to be that bad at managing the fallout of something like that. So yeah, for me, they get the Latifi, and that's before I've even mentioned the Sainz penalty, which we'll come on to in a minute.
Yeah, no, okay, I think that's fair. Yeah, I don't really disagree with much of that. I mean, and they were very lucky that Sainz wasn't hurt, because it was really could have been really, really dangerous. That yeah, the $200 I think was, I sort of, if you're not going to offer people full refunds, don't give them a £200 voucher, because none of them would come back and use it anyway. And also, I don't know if you've seen how much stuff costs in those shops. Like, there was a Ferrari shirt there's a screenshot doing the rounds, right? There's a Ferrari shirt being sold in that shop for $260. So your $200 voucher's not going to get you very far, is it?
It's not going to get much.
No. So I think that was really, a bit quite disrespectful. And I think that there should be ways for them to give people their money back without them being open to being sued for travel and the rest of it. Like, I mean, it's slightly difficult in this situation because you could technically hold Formula One to account and the race organisers to account, because it's an issue that's arisen as a result of, as you say, some pretty poor checks from a safety perspective, and they were rushed. It certainly looked like that, and there are a lot of reasons for that. None of them, I don't think, are particularly acceptable. But I guess I'm a bit more conciliatory, I suppose, on the kind of issue itself. But the response was just really poor. And like you make a really good point about race promotion and stuff, because this is one of the few races on the calendar that the promoter is Formula One. There are lots of other circuits like Spa and Monaco and places where the promoters aren't Formula One, and they're always under constant pressure to keep the races going and like get loads of criticism when the races have issues and stuff. And you think like Monaco, that tends to happen in a pretty flawless way every year, and the only reason anyone has any issues in Spa, generally speaking, are because it's quite a dangerous circuit by its nature, despite a lot of the things that they've done there, and it chucks it down with rain pretty much every year, and you can't do anything about either of those things. I think there'll be a lot of other race promoters kind of looking forward to seeing what happens next year, and if they get any criticism, they can just be like, well, you lot were in control of the Vegas one, it didn't go particularly well, did it, for you for the first couple of days? So I can understand why you've given the Latifi. Pretty bad one, that. I doubt they'll make that mistake again. But kind of in the same way that drivers get away with all the first lap shenanigans, I suppose maybe Formula One should be allowed to make the occasional error on the first race when they host them. But what I would say about this one is, like, they've handled it really poorly. They put a driver at risk. Sorry should have been forthcoming. An apology should have been forthcoming to the fans, to Sainz, to Ferrari, and none of those things have happened. And I agree with you. I understand, like, they're open to kind of being sued and things if they say certain things, but there must be a form of words that they can put out that really does demonstrate some remorse, I suppose, and regret for the decisions they've made that resulted in the issue happening, because that is what was at fault.
I feel like I would have been. And the thing that angers me is that those were the cheapest tickets if you wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so people have paid probably still decent money that could buy you a lot more elsewhere around the world if you went to an F1 race, and they've been massively screwed over. But and then the Sainz penalty, I just think it shouldn't have been one, but there was no way it couldn't be one, if that makes sense, because the rules are black and white about that. There's no sort of force majeure. I understand why there's no sort of force majeure rule to prevent teams from abusing it, but that was incredibly harsh for something that was completely out of his control, caused so much damage.
Yeah.
And you think you're Ferrari, that could have made a massive difference if that hadn't happened for his weekend, and then ultimately, they'd probably be ahead in the World Championship right now.
Yeah.
I think they need to go away and write some sort of force majeure rule into the rules that allows people to make that case, but there has to be certain criteria as well, because it just seems silly. And again, it seems another instance this season where the rules have been seen to be out of date or been caught out, and then they can't do the common sense thing of not giving him a penalty when something like a loose train cover absolutely destroys his car. It wasn't like he did anything. I thought that was incredibly harsh.
Yeah, I agree with you. They need to change the regulations or the framework through which teams can appeal for stuff, because it does seem really stupid that there's no function through which common sense can be applied. Literally the only people. I mean, the problem they have, I suppose, is if they appoint someone, common sense race directors are whatever, not Michael Massey, lol. But if they did do that, and then that person made a decision to not penalise Sainz, 99% of the fan base and 99% of everyone involved in Formula One would have no issue with that. But I guarantee Mercedes would have put in some kind of appeal for sure, because they would say, there's nothing in the rules that say this should happen. You've not followed them. You're at fault. You can't do this. Sainz should get a penalty. And in a competitive sport, fine. I mean, I would like to think Mercedes should be a bit more sporting than that. And if it was the other way around, I'm sure things would be very different. But I don't know. Like, there must be a way of doing it and getting the team's agreement to do it as well, because it does seem really stupid. Because I mean, it was really unlucky that it was Sainz. But next time around, it could be Hamilton, it could be Verstappen. Like those teams will care very quickly all of a sudden if it happens to their drivers. So
yeah. I did ask ChatGPT before we started recording to come up with a force majeure rule, and it came up with quite a comprehensive one that could be added.
Really?
So I sort of explained the situation, and they came up with a rule and about trying to stop teams from sort of lobbying or abusing it or stopping it. So maybe I should just copy and paste that and send it off to the FIA, and they can thank me later when they get that updated.
Yeah.
Let's move on from Thursday then. Just overall, do you think the Las Vegas Grand Prix was a success? It was a lot of fanfare, a lot of hype, a lot of money into it from F1 itself.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a success?
I do. I think it was very overhyped for sure. And I think it's quite interesting, isn't it, that you've got the kind of the hyper Formula One juxtaposed next to a lot of, let's say, traditionalist fans and drivers who I'm desperate to talk about, who weren't looking forward to it at all and just thought it was going to be rubbish and didn't think the circuit was going to be any good. And then we've probably ended up somewhere relatively in the middle. But I think it was a very successful weekend, really. I mean, it can't be easy at all to basically shut down half a city for several hours in the middle of the night and have all these Formula One cars race around them, and then everybody pack up and leave for 4 days in a row, or 3.5, 4 days in a row. And yeah, it was a great race and made quite a really fascinating spectacle. The visuals were really interesting. Like seeing the cars race down the strip was really cool. I mean, I don't know Vegas particularly well, and it's never really been a place I'm too bothered about going, but like it was really cool, really good to see it there. And I think having a few of those kind of location-based glitzy races a year aren't a bad thing for the sport. I mean, I am generally speaking more of a traditionalist. I like a good racing track that promotes good racing. But in this case, we got a pleasant surprise. We got all of that and the great location as well. And there aren't many circuits that can offer that. So yeah, I think it was a definite success. I think a lot of the drivers will really look forward to it next year. I think a lot of fans will really look forward to it next year. I think they need to figure out what to do with the ticketing, for sure, along with a few other teething issues, I'm sure, like the drain covers and whatever else, maybe even the hours that they run sessions and races and stuff. But in general, to make a race happen in a place like that must be incredibly difficult. And they made it a real success. So yeah, I think so. How about you?
And
based on
yeah, I mean, well, I think it would have been the perfect weekend if the drain cover gate hadn't happened, right?
Yeah.
I think that kind of brought it down. I also think a lot of people wanted it to fail.
Yeah.
So the fact it didn't, and the fact it then brought up a really good race, I think is really good for the sport. And fair play to them. They took a risk of setting it up, and they've been paid off by delivering a really good race in an iconic location. Like, I think you're right. Like, it wouldn't have been the same if it'd been the Las Vegas Grand Prix, but actually it hadn't been anywhere near the strip and had been on the outskirts. I think that's not the point of it. And I think it's a smart move by F1 to try and tap into that American audience by being somewhere iconic like Vegas as well, and to do it in 2 years as well from when it was announced to race start is an amazing feat. I think you're right. I think it's really impressive. The comments though.
Oh yes, let's do this, please.
I mean, I think you've got a list of somebody's comments from the weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone very high profile was very, very negative before a wheel had even turned.
Yes. So I mean, I don't think it's any secret that both of us have found Max winning all the races this year pretty tiresome at times.
I think most of F1 has found that pretty tiresome.
I think so. And the viewing figures would back that up for sure. But he has been at times quite entertaining because he is. I want to word this correctly, and I don't want to use a swear word, but like he is incredibly prickly.
Yeah,
in a really enjoyable way. Like he has no filter, really. I don't think, and sometimes I actually think he's doing it to be deliberately provocative at times. And like there are times where that's really annoying, but there are a lot of times where it's quite funny. And this weekend was one of those where he was just on another level. It was like that. It was like Max on like something. I don't know what that something could be, but it was pretty special. So I've just got a few quotes I'm going to read to you from over the course of the weekend. So whilst describing the track, Max says, "So Monaco, yes, I think Monaco is Champions League. This is National League." I mean, in a footballing context, that's brutal. On the Las Vegas Grand Prix, it's 99% show, 1% sporting event. Then when Toto was kicking off about everyone having a go at the race and having a go at the organisers for the drain cover gate, he said, I think if it was his car, then he would have spoken very differently, but I don't expect anything less from him.
Wow.
And then on the promoters' comments, he said, these people live in their own world, and that's no use to us at all. On the $200 voucher, he said, then they make the money from it here too. If I were a fan, I would tear the whole place down.
Not wrong.
Yeah, on F1's priority, I understand fans need something to do around the track, but it is more important we make them understand what we do about the sport. On fans coming to races just a party, I can go to Ibiza and get completely shit-faced and have a good time. On the opening ceremony, he said, it's not about the singers, we're just standing up there looking like clowns.
Yeah.
He was on one. And then when he was on the radio as well, just being like unbelievably rambunctious.
But then you say that he then was singing "Viva Las Vegas"
Yeah.
at the end when he won the race, and he did seem to be enjoying his Elvis-inspired race suit as well, which I did actually really enjoy. I thought that was a nice touch.
So he came pretty close to getting to a Latifi for singing "Viva Las Vegas" because after all, for the 3 days of moaning and bitching about being there, and then enjoying what I thought was quite a good race for him, like he had a pretty good race, benefited from the safety car for sure, but made some nice overtakes. It was quite competitive. Got into a bit of a scrap with George Russell and things. Like it was quite a good race for him. I think he prefers that kind of competitive race than the ones where he just drives off into the distance, which he definitely finds boring. So yeah, when he gets to the end and gets to enjoy the win and stuff, all of a sudden everything's great and he loves being in Vegas. So yeah, he came pretty close to getting a Latifi for that behaviour.
Yeah, I reckon senior F1 bosses will have been phoning up Red Bull throughout the weekend, telling them to shut Max up, because having your world champion shit on your brand new race and say like it's 99% entertainment, 1% sport is really, really unhelpful. And it did add to the narrative at that time of, this is doomed, this is a waste of time, what the hell we're doing here. And I think, I think the reason why I explain some of those comments is Max is not there to be a famous person. Max is there to do a race. So if he sees any any sort of distraction, that just really, really winds him up if it deters him from being able to focus on the racing. And I think, yeah, he was right. I didn't watch it, but I didn't need to watch it. The opening ceremony looked an absolute farce.
Yeah.
To have so many performers and then they literally pop up for 20 seconds and then go back down. Like, yeah, fair enough. And I also did really enjoy, I think he did this deliberately, but Lewis would just say the complete opposite of Max, and then Max heard what Lewis was saying, and it really wound Max up. And he knew that Lewis was doing that. Lewis looked like he was having a great time. He was like out meeting all his friends. He was promoting his new cocktail thing. Yeah. And he was saying, I'm loving it here. It's amazing. Like he knew exactly what buttons he was pushing as well. I enjoyed that as well. We should talk about one part of the race that was actually really good, and I really enjoyed catching this in the highlight, was seeing how they use the sphere. We talked about it in the preview episode, but it's a new addition to Las Vegas, but Formula One played an absolute blinder with the way they used it, and also their sponsors using it as well. I thought that was an amazing thing to have that dominating sphere, to be promoting some of that stuff. I think my favorite one, there's two actually. There's the SpongeBob reactions to like what was going on the circuit that Paramount Plus are doing. I thought that was really clever. And then I really enjoyed when it was the face and the eyes, and it was kind of like with the helmet on, it was kind of, it looked like it was, there's a clip I've seen of it, looked like it following the cars going past it. I thought it was amazing. I thought that really, really added to the whole spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really good. It brings something unique, doesn't it? I think the whole show makes it quite a unique race. And I think for that alone, it's going to be a very welcome addition to the calendar for the next 10 years. They've got a 10-year contract, haven't they?
If I was Miami, I'd be pretty nervous right now because they've kind of stolen their USP, right? And Miami has not delivered a good race yet. The circuit's not very good. We don't need to analyze Miami right now, but I think they'll be very, very nervous and concerned about their future.
Yeah,
and what the future of that will be when you've had such a successful race that kind of does what Miami was meant to do. But
well, they've been talking about New York for a long time as well, haven't they? They're pretty. Domenicali's desperate to kind of try and get one there if he can. So I think if they're going to replace one, then
but they've built some permanent infrastructure now at Miami.
Yeah,
and they've got contracts, so maybe we'll be there for a few years. I know Bernie Ecclestone was keen to go to New York, but maybe they'll serve their contract and then they'll disappear. We should say 315,000 fans, 7th most attended race this year. That's pretty good going.
They must have all been there for the race because from the
Yeah,
pictures
it
I
looks
because I watched qualifying and most of FP2 actually, and it was empty. I mean, FP2 was empty by force. They chucked them all out. But like qualifying in particular, there were loads of empty seats in the grandstand. So I guess the race must have just been like really well attended.
Yeah, and probably the hospitality was probably pretty
Yeah.
well attended as well. The one thing I would like to see different next year, though, is the timings. I think it looked absolutely horrendous, and I've seen some stuff already in sort of the paper this morning that for the journalists, for the drivers, for the TV crews, for the pit crews as well, being up so late, like they were doing Friday practice at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. That is just insane. And I think it really threw them out of kilter. And I think a lot of people said it was one of the worst weekends they've ever worked in Formula One because it was so out of kilter with everyone else.
Yeah.
And then it was too late for like the US TV market, but then incredibly early for the UK and Europe as well. And I think there's a platform called Multiview which enables you to see multiple different like cameras at the same time and during F1. And they tweeted they saw a 32% drop in usage over this weekend because of the timings of the race. Like if they're seeing that, I'd love to see what the TV ratings are going to be because I'm sure there's a sharp fall as well. But yeah, just bring it early. I think I read somewhere saying that the reason why it was so late, all those timings, is because that late night slot works really well in Vegas. They're used to that when they have like boxing and stuff as well. But just it's not quite the same as boxing because that's in an arena. This is the whole city, so you might as well just, if you can have the whole city taken over, do it at 8 or 9 o'clock, just a couple of hours earlier.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there are a few things they could look at doing there. So one is, as you say, is look at the timings. Because I mean, you and I talked in the last episode about how cool the F1 spectacle is at dusk. Anyway, like the cars look really great at that kind of time of day. And one of the main reasons they had it so late, as you say, is the kind of 10 p.m. on a Saturday night boxing kind of peak Vegas time kind of thing. I think that's fine for a local audience. It doesn't do anything internationally, as you say. Yeah, it was pretty hellish for the journalists and drivers and stuff. And it also means everything's happening on Saturday. And as you know, like every race throughout the rest of the week, throughout the rest of the season, all the races happen on a Sunday. And it does seem a bit odd to me that like, they're trying to deliver a Grand Prix on a Saturday when historically that's never happened. And if they did shonk it all a bit later in the day, then you could reduce the inconvenience to, I guess, local Las Vegans on a Thursday because you don't have the cars doing practice at that time. Then you just have practice session on the Friday. And what they could look at doing as well, if they're really desperate to make it happen on the Saturday, is just shut down the city for the day and just have qualifying earlier in the day in different conditions.
One day,
do it all in one day, do it in a day and a half or something. Fine, do the practices late at night on the Friday, whatever. But I think if you offer the drivers, teams, journalists, fans the opportunity to either try and watch it over 3 days at some really unhelpful hours, let's say, or do it in a day and a half with one session or two sessions that are a bit unhelpful in terms of practice, and then qualifying in the race on Saturday, and then the whole circus clears up and disappears before everybody wants to get back to normality on the Sunday. That could work a bit better. I mean, it makes life difficult from ticket sales and stuff, but it would be more convenient, I think. There are definitely some things they could look at doing to make it a bit easier for an international audience to watch, and certainly for the teams and the journalists and everyone else. And it's not just teams as well. There are loads of other people that make the races happen. Safety people, stewards, and the rest of it that travel around with the rest of the circus. And yeah, it seemed some of the comments online seemed to be basically it's like everyone was absolutely shattered like before the race even happened. So yeah, we don't really want to see that. I know it's late in the season as well. Like a lot of them are probably suffering fatigue. More races this year than any other time, any other year before it. More next year. Like it's not an easy sport to be a part of, and they probably should do some small things to try and make life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think it's a 12-hour flight to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
so that's going to completely wreck their body clocks.
Yeah, and 1 week between the two as well.
Yeah, they'll be on the flights there now. And then also, apparently next year it's the start of a triple header, so they're just going to be absolutely wrecked for the next two races after that. But yeah, so I think that concludes our chat on the race. Now let's come on to the predictions game.
Yes.
And Sam, I'm going to give you a drum roll. Get ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Hang on, here we go. Who won this week?
I won this week.
Hey, congratulations!
I needed a big.
By how many?
I needed a big win. I have not got a big win.
Okay.
For one reason only, and that's Esteban Ocon. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So you had Alex Albon. You predicted him to finish in 6th. He ended up finishing 12th. That was looking pretty good for a while, Albon. And then the Williams went backwards.
I thought qualifying was going to happen, but yeah, they did go backwards.
Yeah, they went backwards. So you got 6 points for him. You had Valtteri Bottas. You predicted him to finish in 14th. He ended up classified 17th. So you picked up 3 points for him. And then you had Yuki Tsunoda. He predicted to finish in 12th, and he ended up 18th. So you picked up 6 for him. So for a total of 15 points.
Oh dear.
I had Carlos Sainz, who was very unfortunately penalised, but thankfully drove a really good race and finished in 6th. So I picked up 2 points because I predicted him to finish in 4th. I then had Nico Hülkenberg, who I predicted to finish in 15th. He ended up classified 19th, so I picked up 4 points for him. And then I had Esteban Ocon, and this is what's cost me big time. I predicted him to finish in 12th. He ended up 4th, drove an amazing race in a shit car. And I picked up 8 points for a total of 14. So I've won, but I've only won by 1 point.
Wow. Wow.
So the gap is now 18 instead of 19, and I need a miracle next weekend.
It could happen.
I mean, we've not had anything close to 18 as a difference at all this season. I think the most was 11.
Okay,
so
it's unlikely,
incredibly unlikely. I mean, unless you get Max predicting P1 and he gets taken out turn 1 and finishes 20th, I'm struggling.
I think I need, if I predict the top, either I predict if I get the top 3 and they come 20th, 19th, 18th, or if I get the back 3 and they come 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That's, I think, in my mind, the only way you can win. But
well, here we go. This is it.
I mean, it's not mathematically impossible. So we fight on. It's still a bit of, you could get it close.
Okay.
11. If you got an 11 swing, that would be impressive. With 7 points after how many races have we done this for now?
Good
Most
question.
of them?
Most of them, yeah. I think we started
17,
after
18?
3 or 4. So
about 17 then.
Yeah.
17 races, and to be this close is not a bad go.
No, that's pretty good. I think we are generally pretty consistent. I mean, look at this week. I mean, we only finished 1 point apart. We both had terrible weeks, but only 1 point apart.
And you might be able to get a good Red Bull bit of merch in the Cyber Monday deals.
Yeah. Yes. At least they haven't won every race, so I don't have to buy some commemorative Red Bull 2023 season merch. I can just get something. I'll find something suitable. I'll run it by you as well to make sure you're happy that it's an acceptable.
Yeah. It can't be like a fridge magnet.
No. It'll be something I have to wear. I won't wear it out, but it'll be something I have to wear on the first recording of the next season. I'll wear it.
Nice. A can of Red Bull you got to drink.
Yes. All right. Do you want to know who you've got? Let's do it. Okay.
For the final time this season.
The final
big
time.
moment.
Okay. You've got. First of all, you've got Daniel Ricciardo, number 17.
Oh, I think that's the first time I've had him since he's been back.
No, you had him. You had him in Brazil.
Oh, did I?
You did.
I reckon he will finish 10th.
Oh, points for Danny Rick. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, number 20. Oh, okay. That doesn't count. Liam Lawson. That would have been really funny, though. Yeah. So, look at that. It's so weird because we've had so many different drivers this year. There's a 21 and a 22.
Yeah.
Can you remember the only driver not to score a point in Formula 1 this season?
Nick de Vries.
Yeah. Poor old Nick de Vries, right.
Doesn't that feel like a long time ago he was in the sport?
It does. Oh, you've got Bottas again, number 15.
Oh, God. I'll go 15th.
This is weird. I'm getting really low numbers again. Or that's okay. Number 10. Oh, hold on. What did you say for Bottas?
I said 15th.
15th, okay. Number 10 is Daddy's favourite boy.
Ooh, Daddy's favourite boy, Lance Stroll. See, I don't think he'll get 5th again. I think that's unlikely. I reckon he'll get 11th. I think he'll finish just outside the points.
Okay. So I don't think I can win with that roster because I needed you to get a front runner that DNFs.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, unless Valtteri Bottas wins the race.
and Lance Stroll is second on the podium.
Yes. Short of something absolutely something mad like Leclerc or Verstappen or Hamilton or whatever, like having a crash and being taken out in the first lap. Although unlikely, feels much more plausible than any one of these 3 drivers massively overperforming your prediction.
Well, I mean, you never know. Lance Stroll might turn up. Yeah. Danny Rick could be on form.
Okay, I've got number 18. God, they're all that.
That's low.
That's not a good one for you.
No,
it's not.
That is
Although,
not what you
I mean,
wanted.
like, they've been generally pretty rubbish, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Them and the Haas have probably been the joint worst.
I'm going to go. Does much happen in Abu Dhabi? There aren't many crashes and things, are there? I'm going to go 17th for Joe. Number 7. Oh, Charles Leclerc.
Wow, he's 7th in the championship. Blimey.
He is. He is. How many points is he behind Lando now? He is only 7 points behind Lando Norris and 12 behind Fernando. So, yeah,
Ooh.
good weekend. Could see him finish in top 5.
Podium. Yeah.
Potentially.
That'd be good.
Hamilton's cemented 3rd in the championship. And
Not
then
bad.
Sainz and Alonso both on 200. The race for 4th place in the World Championship.
Between the two Spaniards.
Right, where's Leclerc going to finish? Abu Dhabi. Ferrari are quite good. He's very unlucky, though. I'm going to go 4th for Leclerc.
I thought that's a safe. That's a safe one. You've covered off either a podium or a mid points finish.
Oh no! Oh, that's a disaster. Okay,
That's the face of a man that's just lost.
number 5, Fernando Alonso.
Ooh.
Although he's technically level on points with Sainz, I don't quite know why he's 5th and Sainz is 4th, but it's fine. I'll take it. I would have preferred Sainz, I think.
Is it because it'll be probably in count back on race wins, won't it?
Yeah, of course. And Sainz is the only non-Red Bull driver to win a race this year, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Yikes! What a season.
That'd be the pub quiz question. In the year 2023, who won a race that was not a Red Bull driver?
Yeah, and Singapore is the only circuit that Max hasn't won at the last 2 years.
Oh, I did not know that.
He's won all the others, but not Singapore.
Oh, what a shame.
Right, Alonso, stop stalling. That Aston's not bad now. I'm going to go 7th for Alonso. Yeah, I'm not confident. I'm not confident.
I mean, if you get a perfect weekend, so if you score 0,
yeah, but that still needs you to get 18 points, and you had a pretty terrible weekend this weekend, and you got 15.
and you got 15.
I mean, the last 2 weeks, like, we've not been great, right? Like Brazil, it finished 14-16. Vegas, it finished 15-14.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not impossible, but the odds are in my favour right now.
Okay. How about if I score a perfect triple donut?
My points get doubled.
No, that would be incredibly harsh. No,
that's too harsh.
The merch I select to buy, there has to be some kind of stipulation here, doesn't it? What would it be? Doesn't have to be Red Bull themed. I'll give it some thought.
Yeah, okay.
I'll give it some thought and we can chat about it in the week,
Okay.
and then we'll reveal to the listeners what we've agreed.
What we come up with, yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's incredibly unlikely. We've not really come that close, have we? I think we've had 3 as the lowest score this year.
But then this could be the weekend.
Hey, I've got to find my way. I've got to weasel my way out of having to buy a Red Bull t-shirt.
And do you think Max will win?
Yes.
I'm not asking you who's going to win. I'm going to ask you, do you think Max will win?
Yes, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's some next level Lewis Hamilton justice that sees him win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, lay all those ghosts to rest, and then come back next season and win the World Championship. That's the dream scenario.
That would be the dream scenario. But we've not seen any drop off in form from Max, and he does like Abu Dhabi. He's always done very well in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even on a weekend where he's not brilliant, the car's not brilliant, he picks up a penalty, he still manages to win the thing. So,
yeah. And how does it feel? We come to the end of the season. Does it feel weird that we're approaching the final race, or are you kind of glad for this season to be over?
Well, I'll be glad when next season starts, I think, more than...
I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
Like, I've enjoyed the podcast very much, Will. It's been very good. We're going to continue doing this, aren't we? Even after the race is finished. Next weekend, we'll do some through the winter. I'm looking for... I'm still enjoying it enough that I'm really buzzing for next season. But yes, I think there's probably a point about halfway through this season where it felt very inevitable. And so it's proven Thanos has run off and won... What was it, 18? Did you say it was 18 races he's won now? 19?
18 or 19.
18?
Yeah.
He could win his 19th next year. Next weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how about you? You
So I've probably for a while been like ready for the season just to be over, just so we can have something change. We can have different people winning. Like I'm bored of the Max winning narrative, but I think the second half of the season has picked up a bit. I think it's probably been more fun the second half of the season than the first half. Just there's been a few more interesting more things happened, and the gap has closed.
Yeah,
so it's felt more like a contest. But as I was sort of this morning thinking about the end of the season, I thought, oh, blimey, we actually are here. Like it does feel like. I don't know, maybe because of the podcast, it's like, oh, we've reached the end of the season. Blimey, it feels like quite sad for the season to be over. But yeah, I'm probably more excited. I'm more excited for the start of next season, like you are, than I am for sad this season being over.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited to see what we get to cover next season in the podcast and how many race winners we get to see. But hopefully it's more than 3.
Yeah,
3 different ones.
Yeah. No, I think we'll do a proper end of season review. Probably maybe every 1 or 2 episodes actually after Abu Dhabi, talk a bit about what we're excited for next season. But I think we need, there are a couple of drivers that we desperately need to be in competitive cars to give Max a run for his money next year.
Yeah, we will be watching pre-season testing like hawks.
Yes,
and praying to the gods that we have a car that is competitive, that is not just a Red Bull.
Please let it happen.
Please, we beg you.
All right, I think that brings us to the end of the episode. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcast platform of choice. If you enjoyed it, why don't you share the podcast with a friend? Hopefully they enjoy the podcast as much as I'm going to enjoy my 3 drivers scoring 0 points for me next week and finding me weaseling out of having to buy Red Bull merchandise for vast expense, I might add, after losing the predictions game to Will, inevitably. Follow us on Twitter at Lights Out Lads. On Instagram, we are at the Lights Out Pod.
Yes,
Abu Dhabi next. Last one.
Abu Dhabi next, the last one. And that brings the end of today's episode. That's all from us. All the best and goodbye.
Pray for Sam.